Wave 2 is here. We got 2 new products. You guys love the first series Cyberzone so much, we decided to make some new color variations just for you. We also have a brand new design for the winter season, where we have our second series, Winter Zero. And this time, it comes with different colorways right off the bat. The new drops are now live on the AVAULT store right away for pre-order, so be sure to check it out. Both new drops have single and 2-player versions as well. Alright, Digi-Egg cards, playing 4 copies of the Starter Deck 15 Koromon, just because it is the black base overall, and this is just really good for all turns once return. When you sort of like redirect or switch like an attack target, you get to gain extra 1000 DP, which DP power is going to be important, especially when you sort of go for those combos as well at the same time. Therefore, this is the main black base egg that we're going to be going for this particular deck. Now let's talk about our rookies. Playing 4 copies of the black and red Agumon here, which is your on-play searcher, still one of the best searchers of the deck overall, revealing top 4, grabbing yourself a Greymon or Omnimon, a tie as well, and with its inheritable, gaining extra 1000 DP all turns is always just really good for when you're building your stack all at the same time. And as we move into more black base stuff, playing 3 copies of the Starter Deck 15 Agumon as well, because at the start of main phase, if your opponent has a Digimon, you get to gain a memory, which is kind of nice, so you can sort of turbo Digivolve and do more plays at the same time. And all turns once return, which is pretty important. When an attack target is switched, you get to gain a memory. This happens during your opponent's turn or during your own turn as well. So then you can gain that memory, make more plays in your own turn. During the opponent's turn, you get to disrupt their plays when you go for the blocker and redirecting combos overall. And yeah, 3 is all we really need, but you guys can run 4 if you really want to. That's only just because I switched up 1 copy to include the particular black Agumon from BT8. I personally still just really like this card because it's able to get you double targets when you're searching for your pieces as you're climbing through your stack. You can grab yourself a Greymon, you can grab yourself a Dragonkin, and Dragonkins are essentially all your level 6s in the entire deck, which is really, really good. So that's why I still like to, you know, reserve a spot for this particular guy because it's really, really special. Then for the rest of the rookies, we got 4 copies of the Agumon X Black from BT11. This one's pretty good. It does cost 4 to hard play it, which is why you'd rather Digivolve it on top of your Agumons to get the most value so you can cycle for a card, but it does have both on-play and when Digivolving effects, which does the same thing. Revealing top 3 of your cards, you get to grab yourself a Greymon or a X antibody card in its name, as well as a black Tamer, which is kind of neat because then it's something that you don't really get to search usually. You can find your ties with this in particular, and then you can set up your ties way quicker and get that consistency going on. Very, very powerful and hurtable because it gives you that all turns when this Digimon would either be deleted by an effect or returned to the hand or bottom of the deck. You get to bottom deck one of your own X antibody sources, which is the option card in particular, essentially what the Greymon X does from the BT11. So you get that protection, which is always going to be really crucial for this deck because you do need that protection, and having access to this gives you more layers of protection because of that as now, because you don't have as many of the BT11 Greymons, which we'll talk more as we go along. But let's move into our level 4s now. 4 copies of the BlackWarGreymon from Starter Deck 15 as well. We're playing a lot of those cards because they're really, really good. They are black base. We're trying to utilize as many black cards as possible and as many cards from that particular starter deck to build this too. It can Digivolve for 2 on top of Agumon for the cost of 2 for this alternate text. So you can Digivolve on top of red Agumon. Otherwise, you Digivolve for 2 on top of level 3 black. It mainly has that security effect, which is really clutch. When it comes out and checks out from security, you get to play 1 Agumon or tie from your hand or trash for free. You can turbo your Tamers a lot in this deck, and you want to set up as many Tamers because it gives you all that kind of value when you're sort of climbing through. Itself is also a blocker, but most importantly, it's also inheritable, which does exactly the same as what that Agumon, which we saw earlier, does. All turns when an attack target is switched, you get to gain a memory back. So these 2 combinations are just really trying to sort of disrupt your opponent's turn again greatly, because the more you have it, the even better it is. And then for your own turn, when you do sort of redirecting attacks as well at the same time, you can gain more, which is really, really flexible, which I really like about that. Then we have 3 copies of the BT12 Greymon. Because we're able to search a lot of our Tamers, we also want to sort of like double down and go harder to be able to play more Tamers as much as possible. This Greymon lets us play a tie when Digivolving as long as we don't have one, so you ideally want to get into this one as early as possible to establish your first tie and then play the other ones afterwards ongoing. But also mainly it is a black and red, so then it utilizes more of the black sources, which is kind of important when it comes to sort of building this deck. Having red sources are equally as important as well when it comes to building your stack, because you're going to need both colors somehow at some point when you go to your top end. Otherwise, all turns, gaining extra 1000 DP, always really, really good because of that as well. Now moving into our Greymon X, I'm actually still playing at least 2 copies of the red BT9 Greymon X. Now the reason why I'm not playing any more of that is because there's a bit of clunkiness when it comes to Digivolving and building your stack. Sometimes you can't Digivolve on top of your black Agumons in particular, just because this can only Digivolve on top of level 3 red. Otherwise, you really want to stack this on top of your Greymon regular so they can go for that alternative Digivolve condition to cycle through more cards and build your stack that way. And you guys know as well, this gives you a lot of layer protections because of its inheritable by retrashing sort of like 2 of your same level sources for the exact same way when it comes to protecting against deleting effects or bottom decking or returning to hand as well. And then last but not least, of course, we talked about the BT11 Greymon X antibody, just still a very, very powerful card, being able to reduce your Digivolution cost as you're climbing up for your stack as well. And with that protection, exactly the same as the Agumon X, which we saw earlier. That's why you have to play this card, which is why it's at a 1 of right now. Okay, so now let's talk about our level 5s. I play 3 copies of the BT12 Metal Greymon. Again, for the same reason of being black and red is really good. Digivolving for 3 on top of your own Greymon in its name as well. It has Raid. Also with a secondary effect, when you switch attack targets, you get to play your ties for free as well at the same time, 4 costs or less, as long as it's black or red tamer too. It's just really neat. And then you guys can also see when you rack up with all your inheritables, you can gain memory because you're switching attack targets too at the same time, gaining DP, and its inheritable gets piercing as well. So yeah, one of the best Metal Greymons to still run in the most cases. Then I like to still run 2 copies of the older one from the BT8, just because de-digivolving and having early control is just really, really good. Being able to sort of like take out some strong bodies, strong Digimon, and then immediately get rid of it, and then delete smaller things as well at the same time. And also with its inheritable attacking unsuspended, as long as your guy is a Dragonkin on top of it, is also just fantastic to help you give the removal. So with all of that, even having to Digivolve for 4 costs is totally fine. But there's actually a lot of ways to, gain memory and reduce its cost in this deck as well at the same time too. And then I'm running 3 copies of Metal Greymon X Antibody, the BT11 one. I like to go for the control style, a bit more safer style as well. So mainly, I love its inheritable for its trashing security when we have a lot of reboot going on and suspending going on as well. And otherwise, with its when Digivolving effect, you get to have DP reduction protection and de-Digivolve protection as well afterwards. And you can also pop something that's 6000 DP or less as long as you Digivolve on top of a Metal Greymon, or you have X Antibody in its stack as well at the same time. And after all, it does cost 1 memory just to Digivolve on top of Metal Greymon instead of having to pay its 4 memory as well. Let's talk about our level 6s. As usual, nothing has changed too much, so I'm just going to show all of them and then the lineup comes here. I've always liked the consistency of the 2-2-2 split when it comes to the BlackWarGreymon deck. I play 2 copies of BlackWarGreymon, I play 2 copies of BlackWarGreyX, and 2 copies of Gaiamon just for the versatility and just for the equalness of sort of facing against different matchups overall. BlackWarGreymon in the center to remove tamers, control smaller things, swing, and unsuspend, take out opponent's Digimon. BlackWarGreyX to delete things, reboot, redirect as well, which is very, very powerful. And Gaiamon just for the aggressive style, security +1, de-Digivolve, reboot itself, and just really powerful tools. So very, very good top end overall, very even split, which I always like to keep. You guys can juggle the ratios based on what your personal preference is and based on the meta and the changes, but overall, this is what I always like to go for my lineup when it comes to BlackWarGrey. And then last but not least for level 7s, just one Omni X right here, so then we can search our opponent's security, bottom deck the opponent's Digimon as well, even more control, which is really good, but also just a great finisher to sort of attack, synergize with your X antibody for when attacking, Digivolve into it, trash your opponent's last security, and then swing for game 2, which is a very, very common combo that you always see when it comes to these decks too. That's it for all of Digimon. Let's talk about our tamers. Definitely 3 copies of the BT12 tie. Just for 3 costs, you get to make one of your Greymon or Agumon and starter main with its on play, gain 1000 DP and blocker, but also secondary effect when you Digivolve into Greymon, you get to suspend this guy, gain memory back as well. So very, very good to help your turbo Digivolve and cycle through your stack. And again, just one of the best tie tamers that you always definitely want to run. Then I got 1 copy of the Star Deck 15 Memory Tamer tie. Like I said, Memory Tamer is just really neat as well, but we also redirect quite a bit. So when we redirect, we can actually gain extra 2000 DP, draw a card as well, all turns, which is always going to be really good. And being able to play this for free with our combos are just really good too. Then last but not least, I like to run 1 Cool Boy. This is just more of an optional choice right here. Sometimes I just like being able to search with 2 costs, grab a card, and then when I X Antibody Digivolve, gain a memory, draw 1. We do play quite a handful of X Antibody stuff, so I just think Cool Boy is still really good. But if you guys don't like Cool Boy, you can actually substitute for any ties, play even more 3 cost one from BT12 if you want to as well. Works out really nicely, but yeah, 1 Cool Boy is very fine for this deck. That's it for all of our tamers. Now let's talk about our options. 4 copies of defense training, best black staple now, or best staple in general, being able to search as well, reduce your Digivolution cost. And this is exactly why we are playing a lot of the Metal Greymon X and the Metal Greymons that cost for the Digivolve. Because with Greymon X Antibody from BT11, that used to let you reduce its Digivolution cost, now you have defense training instead. You're able to sort of achieve that same level of Digivolving quickness instead, thanks to that as well. So defense training, definitely want to max it out of, which I really, really like. Very, very good card too. Then of course, the good old 2 copies of Hades Force, just for board wiping capabilities, deleting a bunch of stuff, opponent's Tamers, opponent's Digimon, and then swing afterwards. And it's also your security bomb, just in case when you ever need it too. And then last but not least, 2 copies of X Antibody. You still need this option right here to give yourself the protection, give your when attacking swings, which you ever want to do so as well. My compliment adding an extra copy just because of having so many of the protections, relying on having that X Antibody option is kind of crucial, but space is kind of tight. So therefore, at least 2 of is the bare minimum that you have to go with for sure. Okay, so for tech choices, there is this Agumon that you can play that's pure red, which is totally fine because actually all your Greymons are able to Digivolve on top of this, thanks to their alternative Digivolving conditions, and most of them can actually Digivolve on red as well, which is really, really neat. This is really good because with the BT14, you can gain sort of like starter main phase, Digivolve into Greymon for free immediately, which is always fantastic as long as you have a Tamer with Tide in play. It gives you that extra 2000 DP, but we're trying to be as close to with the black base and try to stick as grounded as possible to the black base, which is why I don't decide to play this in the end. Well, you guys can totally add it if you really want to as well, which actually works for this particular build and quite nicely. For another Greymon, you guys can definitely consider the one that gives jamming if you have reboot. A lot of your top end does have reboot, and having jamming is kind of crucial because this is not the red base build. You're not gaining as much DP as you usually will. So when you swing in security, it can run into a risk, which is why jamming is actually great when you get into that too for the deck. If you want more aggression, this Metal Greymon is also really good. It is black itself, giving security +1 was inheritable, can give you the offensive that you really need. Itself is also a blocker too at the same time. So this one's actually another one that you guys can consider. But overall, I felt like the raid one from BT12 is just really, really good still. And because it's black based stuff, we can always suggest some other BlackWarGreymon related cards that are kind of black that you can utilize. The BlackWarGreymon Ace that can help you sort of like block, blast Digivolve, hand trap someone, surprise them, and also unsuspend as well, which you can use it for offensive applications and defensive applications whenever security is removed, which is really good. Otherwise, you can also play BlackWarGreymon from BT12, and if you want to go for that tribal style and go for the toolbox, you know, being able to raid still is just really strong. But this is after all BlackWarGreymon deck, which is why I kind of stuck to that kind of lineup with BlackWarGreymon related stuff for top end only. But speaking of that, you guys can also play this one Gaiamon from EX4, which is great, trashing security, Digivolve into your other Gaiamon combo. But overall, I kind of feel like this is more better in a full Gaiamon deck, but you can kind of work in this deck as well, even just as a one-off too, which is kind of neat. And last but not least, for other Tamers, you can definitely still play Yuya. I mentioned about not having enough DP is kind of crucial. So therefore this Yuya does make it up for it as well, which is kind of neat because when you Digivolve in the same level, it gets the option protection for the whole turn until the opponent's turn and extra 2000 DP, and it's also a memory tamer. So if you guys don't like Kubo or anything like that, definitely swap this in as well, which is kind of neat. It's very meta dependent too, which is always going to be a good card. Alright, combos and how to play the black-based BlackWarGreymon deck overall. It's very simple. It is stack building at the end of the day, so you want to see your pieces and see your cards. Of course, you want to see your level 3s, of course, as you sort of to help you search, and as well your level 4s as you build your stack. Seeing your ties are great, either ties that you have. Ideally, it's always nice to have defense training as early as possible because it's always a really great turn 1 or even turn 2 play to help you find your pieces, and at the same time, of course, into your 6s, 5s, and then into your 6s as you sort of build. But overall, opening hand, you just want to see a combination of these so that you can sort of make more plays, Digivolve, and search. That's really, really important. What I always like to do, of course, is you hatch your egg, Digivolve into this Agumon, because this one's the base one that doesn't give you any on-play effects. It gives you that sort of starter main, gain a memory if it's inheritable as well, and go off like that. You want to hard play the BT12 one, you want to hard play this one as well, the BT8. And then you can sort of like find pieces. If you have enough memory and it's still kind of your turn, I really like to sort of Digivolve outside here early, so then I can draw another card, search for another card, and it's always just really good. Finding Greymons are really important as you continue to build up. And of course, this helps you find your ties as well, which normally doesn't have enough searching when it comes to Tamer side of things. But then this is when the sort of Greymon lineup where you want to sort of juggle. It's very simple. There's only 2 Greymon that you really get to choose to Digivolve. You either Digivolve into this Greymon here, so you can stay in the back, or otherwise, if you have an opportunity to play a tie for free, you definitely Digivolve this one outside in the battle area so you can establish one tie for free immediately off of like that. And then when it comes to your X's, you know, you make sure to Digivolve your X on top. Keep in mind, remember, you can't Digivolve on top of it like this. That's the only clunkiness with it because it can only Digivolve on top of red, so which is again why I only play 2 copies of them. But as you're building your stack and as you're going, you know, you can suspend your ties, gain memory when you're Digivolving, give it blocker start a turn as well at the same time with his on play as well. And then it's really traditional when it comes to your level 5s. It's really toolbox style based on what you want, based on what you have. If you have, your opponent has something that they're playing unsuspended of, then you can sort of like go into this BlackWarGreymon, raid into it, play another tie for free. If not, if they have a bigger body or something very troublesome to deal with, or they have like a level 4 you want to get rid of, which is really good against like Blast Ace combos generally, because if they have a level 4 sitting on there with a level 3 underneath, you go into this BlackWarGreymon, even for the 4 cost, you de-Digivolve that Digimon, you pop that level 3 underneath, then you're basically free from the Blast Ace because most of them are level 5s in this case. And by getting rid of it, it's really good for the meta counter. And then I would always like to go into the BlackWarGreymon afterwards and then build into my level 6. Again, very similar to level 5s, depending on what you have, depending on the matchup what you need to get into. This is when you sort of choose what you would get into. BlackWarGreymon for control, deleting things, BlackWarGreymon for further control to delete a lot of things at the same time as well. And then Gaiomon for the aggressive, de-Digivolve, swing for multiple checks, all really neat. And when you have that BlackWarGreymon underneath, you can swing over unsuspended, and having the BlackWarGreymon X, you can when you reboot, you also just trash your opponent's security all at the same time, which is always fantastic. And this is the whole reason why I really like defense training, because ideally, when you sort of sometimes Digivolve your stack, if you do find your one of Greymon X antibody from BT11, you can turbo into your BlackWarGreymon here or your BlackWarGreymon X if you have to skip sometimes, for 2 costs only, which is really great. But thanks to defense training, you set that up all for yourself now. And because of that, you can actually do the same without needing this, which is why I love the training boost for this particular deck. Same goes with this Agumon. Sometimes I like to build this stack this way as well. I Digivolve into Greymon here. Whether if I have Greymon X or not, it's totally fine. I Digivolve into this BlackWarGreymon and the BlackWarGreymon X. Whichever BlackWarGreymon you have doesn't really matter too much. And most importantly, you want to make sure you have your tie, so then when you establish your BlackWarGreymon right here, it basically is a blocker, which is really crucial because now at this moment, when your opponent attacks, when you block with it, you gain 1-2 memory with the Agumon, you gain extra 1k with here, and if you have this tie, you're suspended to gain extra 2k and get to draw a card as well, which is really neat because then it disrupts your opponent's turns. And keep in mind, these Greymon and Agumon effects are all turns, so they actually work very well, even with the BT12 BlackWarGreymon right here, because when you attack and raid into something, attack target switch, you gain 2 memory off of it, which is great value because then you can continue your plays, Digivolve for even more, and continue just like that, which is always really good. So that's really all with the BlackWarGreymon deck. That's how you want to control overall with it. Control, swing, and also finish the game just like that, and take down your opponent as you trash their security all at the same time. So don't forget to check out the AVAULT store. We got tons of promotions going on, which is going to be ending at the end of the year, which you definitely don't want to miss out. And if you haven't seen the gameplay video yet of us playing this particular deck, taking out our opponents, definitely watch it here right now as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, wherever you are. See you in the next video. And this is AVAULT signing out.